Patient stories can provide a valuable insight into the challenges faced and coping strategies employed by people living with CLL. They can provide comfort and nurture a feeling of "you are not alone" to those of us living with CLL and our families. However, the views expressed are those of the storyteller and do not reflect the views of CLL support. CLL support does not have any editorial control over the contents of each patient's story and will not necessarily have prior knowledge of the contents of a patient's story. They reflect the lived experiences of those who choose to share their story. They are personal to each individual and their circumstances.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the invitation to talk. I hope I can add to the stories. Mine is going to have a slightly different flavor because I'm only on one treatment compared to the multitude of treatments from Jacques. So, first of all, the sequence of events. I was diagnosed with CLL in 2017. This actually happened through seeing an ENT specialist, again, swollen glands. He did a biopsy, came back with a diagnosis of chronic lymphocytic leukemia. Not being a medic, I didn't understand that chronic meant long-standing. Probably you've lived with it for quite some time without noticing it, and you can live with it for quite some time without it being too much of a problem. I thought chronic was bad. In fact, it's not. But I did hear the word leukemia and was quite alarmed. Anyway, it wasn't until 2020 that I was on ibrutinib. That was delayed for a few months because of the COVID pandemic, the medics not knowing the extent of the problems on the health service. And in that time, there was a general deterioration. There was a debate whether it be ibrutinib or whether it be a chemo treatment. I have to say I favored the chemo treatment because I love marmalade, and I was told that once I was on ibrutinib, there'd be no more marmalade in my life. I miss the marmalade. I'm on ibrutinib, but a small price to pay because it's been very effective. What actually happened in June, because of the scans for my CLL, I also, they identified that I had a lump on my kidney, so I had kidney surgery, and that actually proved to be cancerous. It would only have been found out because of the scans for the CLL. So in one sense, I'm fortunate. But I was very, very frail after that kidney surgery. I also had a slightly pressured work situation, which I'm sure added to it. And then April 2024, I was onto the Surrey University exercise and oncology trial. So to see that the time differences, I put that in a horizontal timeline so you can see the gaps. The diagnosis, the start of ibrutinib, which was, as I say, in the first lockdown, the kidney surgery, which coincided with the second lockdown. The COVID lockdown, slightly blurry edges, but I put them as a straight line there. And as I say, I can remember after the surgery, I was weak to the point, I don't know whether you've seen it, but if I was trying to bend down to touch my toes, I couldn't get that far. But to straighten up, my back felt so tired and weak. I was actually walking myself up my legs, if that makes sense. I was pushing myself back upright. Very, very frail. And to put a perspective on that, before CLL, I was never a sort of first-class sportsman, but I did do a lot of activity with my wife. We would go on holidays together. We took our tandem to Italy. We flew into Pisa, cycled down the Italy, crossed over the Apennines, the Adriatic coast, down south to Salerno, Pompeii, and then up to Naples and flew out of Naples. So we'd take our mountain bikes to Sardinia, cycle around Sardinia. Lucy's a pale English rose. She is actually half Italian. And yeah, just a lot of activity. I never structured my exercise, but I got a lot of exercise, primarily cycling. And in more recent years, with children around, we didn't go out so much together. But I went to go cycling with a friend, Jonathan, who was a vet. He was active. He would do a lot of sports. He was 15 years younger than me. But I think I could give him a rough time up the hills around the Cotswolds. So we'd go out cycling and make him inflict a bit of pain. We also did a ride in Scotland called the Five Ferries. you start, this was in 2013, you start in Ardrossan and get the ferry over to Brodick. From Brodick, cycle over Arran, get the ferry off the other side up to the north of Kintyre, then further north and get a ferry over to the next peninsula. You get to Bute, final ferry to Weems Bay. Is that how I pronounce it? Weems Bay, I'm not quite sure. And then down to Ardrossan. And mainland to mainland is 50 miles. If you close the loop, it's 80 miles. And the idea is to choose a nice summer's day in Scotland, a long day, lots of sun, and it's 80 miles to do in one day. We didn't choose a sunny day. You can see, I think the weather, there's this lovely Scottish word, they call it dreich, if I got the pronunciation right. I looked up the definition of dreich. It's something to do with, let me see, I read quite a good description. Scottish word meaning dull, gloomy, persistently rainy weather. One that's devoid of light, warmth, and color. Well, anyway, we still had a good time doing this 80 miles. That's with Arran in the background. So yeah, fairly active. But through to the point where I started treatment, the watch and wait period, which was some years, where I was deteriorating. My wife tells me that my breathing was bad, the swollen glands, I was struggling to swallow. And then the kidney surgery, at which point I was very, very weak. And I tried to recover from that point, but it was very erratic. I think I had no sense of proportion. So when I would go out and do some exercise, I would exhaust myself and I'd find myself ill. And then I'd be in bed for a few days. And I'd be back, by the time I got back to exercise, I would have got back to where I started. Then I heard two talks. I think this was December 2023, two talks at a CLL support conference, one by David Bartlett, the other by Ellie Miles from Surrey. And they were talking about exercise and CLL. The first thing they said, which I think many people would identify with, increased fatigue and a low resistance to illness. Well, I could tick those two boxes. They then started talking about the benefits of exercise, and they're saying that, and I hope I heard them correctly, exercise stresses the body in a similar way that infections stress the body. When the body's fighting an infection, it responds in a similar way to exercise. So the issue there is that if the two coincide, exercise and an infection, when your defenses are down, you're going to be ill. But if you can exercise your body and build up your strength and build up your general resilience, one, you're getting stronger, you're going to be more active, but two, you'll be more resistant to infection. And it is this, but repeating that, if you overcook the exercise at the wrong time and you're fighting off an infection, then you'll be ill. Now, I hope that's a good summary of what they were saying. But they were running a trial to develop these ideas with exercise and oncology. And I was really keen to get them involved. So I was accepted. I did think, well, you know, the potential upside is enormous. If I can build up my strength, build up my ability, my capability to do things, great. Also my resistance to illness. And the possible downsides, I couldn't really see any. It wasn't as if I was experimenting or using some new drug. So I went on the trials. They tested my ability to do exercise. They then set an exercise schedule which was matched to my abilities. They monitored my performance through a Polar Watch, and they could see the account. I was doing the exercises remotely. They were based in Surrey. I live north of here in the Cotswolds. So I'd do the exercises at my local gym, and they would monitor my performance by accessing the account through the Polar Watch. And as they saw how I improved, they would then adjust the exercises, increase the level of exercises, and gradually were building up my strength. And I could see the improvement. I can remember also at one point in the program, I started to feel a sore throat coming on, a slight infection. Now, in the past, that would have taken me down. I might have gone off to bed or whatever. What I did was back off the exercise, just lower the intensity a bit, and I weathered the illness. And that was quite a sort of feat. I was quite excited by that. And often I'd hear people say, well, of course, exercise is good for you, lots of exercise. The difference is when I'd done exercise in the past with no sense of proportion, I think probably I'm a bit of a headbagger, never knowing where to stop, I would make myself ill. Whereas what they were doing was giving me exercise which was calibrated to where I was and adjusted as I improved, they would increase things. And I could see the results. I mean, I became a lot more active. I've taken up fishing recently, and in 2023, before this schedule of exercise, I went to Ireland fishing with some friends. I was exhausted. I mean, part of it is in boats, part of it is going down the banks. I had to take a rest day partway through. 2024, the same holiday, and I was just far more resilient, just keep going and enjoy myself more. It's true, I now don't get a free pass around the house when it comes to jobs like putting out the bins. I've got to pull my weight, but it's a credit to my wife. She's put up with so much. And I've become more resilient to health issues. So if I go back to that timeline, I'll try and sort of put on this underneath it, my energy levels. Now, this is very subjective. I got to listen to my body. I'm one of those people who's sent off to a boarding school at 8. The one thing they taught you is not to listen to your body in those kind of environments, or certainly when I went there those years ago. So the idea of listening to my body is and assessing my energy levels is quite difficult. But anyway, I would put down a sort of slow deterioration whilst I was on this watch and wait period. Then with the kidney surgery, a dramatic drop downwards. It was also this pressured, unpleasant work environment. I'm very, very, very weak after that. And from there, a slow improvement. I put that as a straight line. I think if I was redoing the artwork, I'd give it a sort of far more jagged effect. So I'd try and improve myself. I'd make myself ill. I'd go back, but I was getting a little bit better. I have to give a big shout out to my wife. She was very patient, very supportive. She's the flamboyant one in our marriage. And I got to give her lots of credit for looking after me so well. The other thing, if you can bear with me, is my Christian faith. This has been really important to me, and I hope you can be patient if I just read out some words from a psalm which perhaps summarizes things. I need to keep my face towards the microphone, so I hope I can remember the words. Lord, you have assigned me my portion and my cup. You have made my lot secure. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. And I think at times it was a confidence that it was difficult to hold on to. But I do have this great belief that my life is in God's hands. And you could say it was a bit of a rum deal to say the boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. I think my treatment really has been quite benign. It has worked very effectively. And also, were it not for the CLL and the CT scans, they wouldn't have diagnosed the problem of my kidney, which is a blessing, because otherwise that would have been a cancer, which could have been a far more serious problem for me. So let's go back to this timeline. Yeah, the exercise and oncology trial. I have to dramatic improvement there. This exercise really built me up straight away, and I'm keeping on going with it, with steady improvement. I've actually now asked Ellie Miles, who supervised that exercise, to continue supporting me, setting out my exercise schedule. I've now got an ambition to redo the 5 ferries, 12 years on this year. A different support team. It's going to be a big ask to do that 80 miles. That's my plan. A different support team this time. Jonathan is now in the USA. So I've asked my daughter and my son have offered to help me. My daughter lives, but she circles with Cowley Condors. She's giving the thumbs up to the photographers. She races. And my son, who he takes on cycling expeditions. This is him cycling from Buenos Aires to Santiago on the Chile-Argentine border at 12,500 feet. Amazing what he gets up to. Anyway, let me close. Health is, I would say, an unpredictable companion. I've been very fortunate, but who knows what the future holds. I benefited from this exercise and calibrated to my abilities, and I'm very grateful for that help. And I'd say thank you for listening.